Okay, so Chandra, your focus at Warwick was, gosh, there's a long list here: economics, business strategy, operations management, and the political economy of Southeast Asia. For yourself, Hilmi, your focus was what at uni?
I was in a business school as well with Chandra,
Yeah.
but the UK actually through boring. It gave me a chance to expand my studies to China, fully paid by the university, stipend covered everything, but and it actually allowed me to study a lot of things beyond the original scope of my degree with the full support of the university. So yeah.
Sounds like a great opportunity. All right. Okay, so let's just fast forward a little bit, because this is a relatively short session, and at some stage in the future I'd love to do a more extended session with both of you, because I think there's a lot of ground that we could cover. But since the days of returning from the UK, you've both progressed very, very vibrant careers in different areas. One of you more institutional and government related, the other very, very much trendy and high profile tech and e-commerce. Perhaps begin with Chandra. Please just share with our audience what you're doing at the moment.
Yeah, so I currently work at Tokopedia as a strategic initiatives lead for the FMCG department. To put that in layman's terms, essentially I help leadership with directing the future of FMCG sales in Tokopedia. So that entails, not only the boring things such as sales figures, budgeting, but also strategic projects that we do to really rethink the business model that Tokopedia has now and what it could look like in the future.
And as we were talking before the mics were on, there are some very, very interesting challenges now. Of course, there was the pre-pandemic levels were perhaps the challenge was to encourage people to online purchases, and then the pandemic drove people through necessity, and now going back to some sort of new normal. The organization itself is having to find its feet in terms of direction. So I think you've got an absolutely fascinating role within that. Hilmi, the rumor is that your boss is a fairly prominent, high-profile, well-known individual as well. Your ultimate boss. What's his name again?
I would think so, but I don't know. So yes, Chris, as the rumors will have it, I serve the president's office in Indonesia as well, Kantor Staf Presiden. I'm an assistant advisor, and in private sector terms, we are the government of Indonesia's internal consulting / think tank. So in a lot of companies that are present here, there are internal CEO office units. So we provide a similar role, but for the president and managing the entire government. So I hope that puts some light to what I do here.
Yes. And was this type of role ever on your mind before you went to the UK?
Not at all. Not at all. So as you know, as I said, I started in a business school with Chandra, and I wanted to dedicate my life to simply making money, I guess, at the time.
How terrible. Wanting to make money. And no shame, he's admitting it as well.
I like money, but at the time, I think studying in the UK, it really gives you room to grow, to explore your interests, because a lot of it will be independent. So you're taught to take charge, have personal leadership from such a young age. You're not spoon-fed. And because of that, you're allowed to explore. And I think when I was in the UK, actually, because of all the free time, all the independent learning, I was able to pursue a lot of work with the Indonesian Embassy, a lot of work with the Indonesian Student Association. I was president of my university, and subsequently from that, I was able to do what I do today. I was able to get the right network to be able to work for my current office. So it's really, and I think going back to how studying something completely different, being in business school, has helped prepare me to be in in the heart of the Indonesian government with all the bureaucracy, because I think studying in the UK, fundamentally, you will get flexibility, as I said, but also a strong curriculum, whatever it is you study. So I think critical thinking, teamwork, statistics and data analysis, synthesis, and making your point, these are things that are present in anything that you'll study in the UK.
So thanks for mentioning that, because around this room, you saw about half of it. There are 20, I think 19 or 20 universities represented. 3 or 4 might be regarded as some of the more traditional or red brick universities, but as a chamber, we also support the modern universities as well. But you two guys have got lots of friends, colleagues, associates who've studied in America, or maybe the Netherlands, or maybe Australia, or stayed in Southeast Asia. And I'm sure you must have discussed, Chandra, the different takeaways from the time of being in that foreign country. What sense do you get that having been in the UK was just so much better than the other countries?
As you mentioned, Pat, I have a lot of colleagues who have gone to many different kind of universities, whether that would be locally or in America or even Australia and New Zealand. But I think one common thread that I do find, and one that I'm certainly grateful for having experienced in the UK, is the diversity and culture that's really present. No matter whether you are in London or perhaps other cities, like we were in Coventry, Edinburgh, Glasgow, there's a lot of diversity to be enjoyed there. First and foremost, from the student population, in Warwick Business School itself, we were more than 50% international students. So whilst we were able to interact with many of the British students there, we also had many friends from India, from Pakistan, from America, from Indonesia, of course, and also many other Southeast Asian countries. Second is, I can see that, from the time that we went there, and even until now, the investment in new technologies such as Web3, artificial intelligence, data analytics, and automotive has really been on the rise in the US, in my opinion, in the UK, sorry, in my opinion. In comparison to even universities in the US or Australia, whereby they focus a lot of their investments on the more traditional fields, from what I've heard from my colleagues. And lastly, also, you can see the difference in, I think, demeanor. There's the difference in the worldliness of people when I compare my colleagues who perhaps went to Australia or the US compared to those who went to the UK. In the US and Australia, as you know, there is already a huge legacy population of Indonesian students and also Indonesian migrants who live there. And perhaps the downside to that is that there is that tendency of sticking together, which is not necessarily bad. But one lesson that I most value from my experience in the UK is being pushed to be friends with all sorts kinds of people from different walks of life, from different cultural backgrounds, and being encouraged to do so as well. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway for studying in the UK for me.
So, as a place in terms of geography, lots of history, lots of heritage, lots of culture. You got all the sport and everything else, but not just the culture. For you, a key point was the cross-cultural opportunities that actually, although you were in a relatively small country, they were very, very global. Would you endorse that, Hill?
No, definitely. I think all the major points have been covered by Chandra. I'd also like to underscore safety and security. I think it's a major concern for lots of parents here, lots of Indonesian students as well. I think the UK is really safe. London has, I think, the most CCTV in the world, in fact. And I've had my run-ins with the police in the UK, not because of me doing anything.
Not now.
But when I needed their help, when I needed the help of emergency services, they were there. So I think during our second year, I was involved in an accident. And actually I called the ambulance where my hand was cut. There was a glass shard in my hand. And I called the ambulance. The NHS from the local hospital picked me up. I was able to, get my stitches. And when I asked how much do I have to pay for the ambulance for medicine, nothing. So that's I think the most incredible bit for the UK for me. It's like you're safe there. You get into an accident, you need the help of the police, emergency services. They're there for you, very professional, and it's all for you. I can't say the same for the US. I think for some of the stories I heard, where I had friends who were in accidents and they had to pay close to 1 million rupiah for some of the medical treatments and so on.
You raise a particularly good point there, because I think a preoccupation for many parents is, will my son or daughter be safe? Are they in a safe environment? And if something does happen, is it all manageable? And as you put it, affordable as well, not going to make a big dent. Okay, you sort of covered this a little bit, I think, Chandra, when you mentioned how the UK systems seem to have encouraged taking on the modern elements to academia, the more practical, contextual elements like AI, tech, and data-driven things, and so on. And this is certainly a feature of many of the modern universities that we have here. And probably the reason is actually their commercial sustainability. The modern universities is very much dependent on being closely related, collaborated with the private sector. So a couple of small examples, but I think these will resonate. Coventry University have a faculty in Rolls-Royce engineering, and here Coventry are becoming renowned for anything to do with aerospace. Liverpool John Moores, for example, has a faculty in Liverpool Football Club training facility, and sports science is the thing. So it's these close collaborations with the private sector where actually the university is responding to the demands today and the future demands and human resource capabilities that are going to be needed in the future. So really my question is this now, and I can just say, sorry, my team, Jenny and so on, they go around all our corporates. We've got 250 corporate members, and they are more and more saying to us now, someone who's got international relations, international business administration, all very, very useful, but it doesn't really tell us much about the skill set or the passion of the person that we might be recruiting. They are more interested in people that have gone out there and stuck their neck out for sustainability, engineering with electric vehicle, specifically sports science and so on. So my question actually is, how important now, you did go to a prominent university, both of you, how important now do you think the name and the history of the university is vis-a-vis what the employer will see and sense from the study path that the university has allowed and encouraged?
I think, first and foremost, it would probably be useful to just track back and go back to the reason why you're choosing to go to the UK and why a particular university. As you mentioned, many modern universities in the UK have now been known for each of their specialties with investments in different sectors. So I think that's the first question you need to answer. And the second question you need to answer is, at the end of the day, I think the perhaps more established and older universities with bigger names, what you're buying into is the reputation. But you go to university to eventually expand the skills that you currently have, or add on to the set of skills that you currently have. And so, I think, and as you mentioned before, there is a lot of investments currently going to not just the legacy names, but also the more modern, newer universities that are perhaps more capable and going more in-depth in their respective specialties than the bigger name universities. I can certainly say that during our time at Warwick, being in close proximity with Coventry University, we see a lot of just the simple physical kind of investments they are making in their various departments, especially in automotive. And we can see that this is a trend that is ongoing with other modern UK universities as well. So going back to your question, how important it is, I think ultimately it really depends on what you want to specialize on. And at the end of the day, it's about you being able to demonstrate to your future employer that you're capable of doing the job that you were asked to do and having that set of skills that you're required to do the job. And so, not really. I think it's more important to see where the investments are happening and which area, instead of just looking at the broad reputation of a particular institution. Maybe Naomi has something to add.
Any quick add to
Sure.
that?
I think I'll start with the fact that the UK universities, they're all very career-oriented. It's a key KPI they put into their rankings. I know this because I used to lead the Indonesian Student Association in the UK, so I was able to meet a lot of universities, a lot of students. Second, I think that in this day and age, no university can guarantee success for you. It's really on each of us to craft our CV, to get that experience, to build your network, to then subsequently achieve success, achieve what you want to achieve. Because looking back, in the UK, it's a gap. The UK uniquely provides an opportunity for this because with student societies, I think that's a key point. So beyond universities, you will have students, you will have a student environment, academic environment that's very conducive to this, where they encourage you to group up, to meet companies, to create events with companies, to speak to organizations, future employees, and so on. So there's that culture there. So just to recap, my response is that it's not important at all, in my opinion, but you're safe to know that in the UK, it's a key metric that universities track in terms of employability, wherever it is you go. Second, it's really on each of everyone here to really craft their CV, to really build those skills, build your own personal portfolio. No university can do that for you. And third is, in the UK, I feel that there's a culture that's conducive to just doing so with that.
Well, thank you both. Perfect endorsements. And for anybody that's looking for some inspiration in terms of finding what you want in terms of developing your CV, developing your career, and in the end, bringing a return on investment, your parents' investment in your education, then the Britchang team's USP is knowing what the talent gaps are in Indonesia and knowing what corporate Indonesia, whether it's the international companies invested here or the domestic companies, are what talent they are looking for as well. This is fairly unique guidance that only Britchang, the Britchang Education Centre, can provide you. Ilmi Kartasasmita, thank you very much, and Chandra Sosrajoyo, thank you very much indeed for sharing your thoughts, your time in the UK, and providing some guidance, some inspiration for our audience here today. Thank you.